There is a certain kind of person who feels more alive inside the quiet walls of their own home than in the loud, demanding world outside. The kind of person who doesn't need crowded rooms, flashing lights, or endless conversations to feel whole. They find their energy not in the noise of others, but in the softness of space, in the calm of routine, in the safety of their own presence. And while the world may label them antisocial, boring, or distant, the truth is far deeper and far more misunderstood. People who love staying at home aren't running away from life. They're choosing a different way to live it. The home they return to isn't just walls and furniture, it's a psychological sanctuary, a place where their nervous system relaxes, where their thoughts stop competing with the world's expectations, where they can finally breathe without performing. Home is where they reclaim themselves after giving too much of their energy to a world that doesn't slow down, doesn't soften, and doesn't always understand the power of quiet. But behind this love for staying home lies a complexity that few see. For some, home is peace. For others, home is protection. For a few, it's the only place where they don't feel judged, overwhelmed, or drained. And for many, it's where they rediscover the parts of themselves they lose when they step outside. Loving home doesn't mean they hate people. It means the world feels too loud, too sharp, too demanding for their sensitive mind or overflowing inner world. Still, there's a dangerous side to this comfort, one that whispers quietly in the background. The same walls that protect can begin to confine. The same peace that heals can begin to numb. The same sanctuary that feels safe can become emotional armor hiding wounds no one talks about. So let's step inside the psychology of those who love staying home, not to judge them, not to change them, but to understand the depth of their silence, the strength of their stillness, and the truth behind what looks, from the outside, like simple preference. Because when you look closely, staying home isn't about escaping the world. It's about surviving it. Number 1, home as a sanctuary. The psychology of safety and emotional regulation. For people who love staying at home, the walls around them are not barriers, they are protection. The moment they step inside, something inside their mind softens, unwinds, and breathes again. Home is the one place where the world stops demanding, where expectations loosen their grip, where the nervous system finally feels safe enough to let go. To outsiders, it may look like a simple preference, but psychologically, it runs much deeper. The human brain is wired to seek safety, and familiar environments offer the strongest sense of control. At home, nothing unpredictable happens. No unexpected social cues, no loud atmospheres, no pressure to perform or react instantly. Every corner, every object, every routine becomes a gentle reassurance. You're safe here. That feeling alone can transform an overwhelmed mind into a calm one. For many, the outside world is overstimulating too many voices, too many decisions, too many unspoken rules to navigate. Social environments demand emotional regulation, eye contact, small talk, managing impressions. The brain works overtime. Even enjoyable outings can leave a home-loving person mentally drained. So when they come home, the relief is not laziness, it is emotional recovery. The home becomes a psychological reset button, allowing their mind to settle, recharge, and return to equilibrium. But there is a nuance here. Staying home is not simply avoiding discomfort. It is choosing an environment that aligns with one's emotional wiring. Some people calm down in crowds, others ignite in noise. But homebodies, they find peace in stillness. They are most themselves when no one is watching, when no one is demanding pieces of their attention, when their internal world takes priority over external obligations. However, this sanctuary can also become a shield that grows thicker over time. When home feels safer than any human interaction, when the world feels like a storm, too strong to step into, comfort can quietly turn into avoidance. The sanctuary becomes a cocoon. And the cocoon, if left closed too long, can become a cage. Still, the truth remains. People who love staying home do not love less. They simply love differently. They thrive where they feel grounded, protected, and emotionally regulated. Their sanctuary is not about shutting the world out. It's about finding a place where they can exist without fear, without noise, and without pretending. Number 2. The inner world. Why home is the perfect space for deep thinkers and creatives. For people who love staying at home, the greatest adventures rarely happen outside. They happen inside their minds. Home is not just comfort. It is fertile ground for imagination, reflection, and internal exploration. While others thrive in stimulation, homebodies flourish in quiet. That quiet becomes a doorway to their inner world, a world richer, more vivid, and more alive than the chaos outside. Deep thinkers don't just absorb life, they process it. They dissect conversations long after they're over, reflect on emotions most people ignore, and find meaning in moments others overlook. The outside world moves too quickly for this kind of introspection. It demands instant responses, quick decisions, constant engagement. But at home, time slows down. Thoughts stretch out. Ideas unfold. Feelings become understandable. Home creates the mental space that deep thinkers need to breathe. Creatives also find refuge in the stillness of home. Art, writing, designing, building, all of it requires uninterrupted focus. A kind of mental isolation that allows the mind to wander without fear of being pulled away. The world outside interrupts. Home allows flow. And in that flow, creativity thrives. Many of the world's greatest works weren't born in crowded rooms. They were born in quiet spaces where imagination was free to expand. But this inner world is not only a gift, it is also a dangerous place. Because when you live so much inside your mind, you sometimes forget to live outside of it. Thoughts can become loops. Emotions can become storms. Reflection can become overthinking. The very stillness that nurtures creativity can also amplify worry, doubt, or unresolved pain. This is why some people stay home, not to create or reflect, but because the inner world feels safer than reality. It becomes familiar, predictable, comforting, far more manageable than unpredictable human interactions that require emotional energy deep thinkers don't always have. Yet, despite these risks, the beauty of the inner world remains unmatched. People who love staying home are often the ones who notice the small things, the shift in light between morning and evening, the sound of rain on windows, the emotional details in someone's voice. They live life deeply, not loudly. Their thoughts are long. Their emotions are layered. Their imagination is endless. Home is not where they hide from life, it's where they understand it. It's where they build, create, reflect, and grow. It's the only place where the noise fades enough for their inner world to finally be heard. Number 3. The social myth: why loving home doesn't mean hating people. One of the greatest misunderstandings about people who love staying at home is the belief that they dislike others, that they're cold, distant, or uninterested in connection. But the truth is far more human and far more emotional. Homebodies aren't avoiding people. They're avoiding the exhaustion that comes from performing in environments that don't match their natural rhythm. The world romanticizes extroversion. It praises the loudest voice, the busiest schedule, the one who's always out there, and anyone who prefers quiet nights, familiar spaces, or meaningful conversations over crowded rooms is quickly labeled as antisocial or not trying hard enough. But people who love staying home often feel deeply, so deeply that superficial socializing drains them faster than anyone realizes. They're not uninterested in others. They're selective. Their capacity for emotional connection runs deep, not wide. They would rather have 2 people who know their soul than 100 people who barely know their name. They value authenticity over performance, depth over noise, and truth over small talk. Home is the environment where they can show their real selves, not the version the world expects. Social energy is not equally distributed among people. Some recharge through crowds. Homebodies often recharge through stillness. Going out is not impossible for them, it's simply expensive. It costs emotional currency, attention, empathy, sensory focus, and the effort to read subtle social cues that others navigate without thinking. By the time they return home, they are drained in ways most people never notice. And because of this, many home-loving individuals carry a quiet pain, the pain of feeling misunderstood. They often hear, "You never go anywhere. You're so quiet. Why don't you have more fun?" But fun looks different for them. Peace feels more satisfying than popularity. Intimacy feels more meaningful than applause. Some people love with their presence. Homebodies love with their consistency, their listening, their loyalty, and their ability to show up fully, but only when their energy allows them to be genuine. They don't want to give anyone the tired, diluted version of themselves. They want to offer the real thing, and home is where they refill what the world drains. Loving home doesn't mean hating people. It means loving selectively, deeply, and honestly, and refusing to pretend that loudness equals connection. It means recognizing that the most meaningful relationships are not built in crowds, but in quiet moments where authenticity is allowed to breathe. Number 4. Escaping the noise. How today's world overwhelms sensitive minds. The modern world is louder than ever, not just in sound, but in pressure. Everywhere you turn, there is expectation, stimulation, comparison, and speed. Notifications ping like tiny alarms. Conversations overlap. People rush. Social media shouts 1,000 lives at once. And for those who feel deeply, think deeply, or absorb the energy around them like a sponge. This constant noise becomes more than an annoyance. It becomes an emotional threat. This is why so many home-loving people retreat to their own space. Not because they are weak, not because they are avoiding life, but because the world outside pushes their nervous system into overdrive. Sensitive minds don't just hear noise, they feel it. They don't just see chaos, they internalize it. A crowded room becomes a battlefield of energies. A busy street becomes a storm of sensations. A simple interaction becomes a puzzle of emotions to decode. And when all of this builds up, the outside world becomes too much for a mind that was never meant to operate at that pace. Home, then, becomes the antidote. A space where the noise finally fades. Where thoughts stop tripping over each other. Where the sensory overload settles into peaceful stillness. At home, the mind recalibrates. It organizes what the world scattered. It rests from the overwhelm of having to constantly interpret signals, maintain social composure, or process complex emotional information. Home isn't a luxury, it's survival. But there's a deeper psychological layer here. Sensitive minds don't just retreat because of overstimulation. They retreat because the world demands constant comparison. Social media trains people to measure their worth against highlight reels. Society tells them they're not doing enough, not fast enough, not loud enough, not visible enough. And for the person who loves staying home, this pressure weighs heavily. They don't crave competition. They crave peace. They don't chase attention. They chase meaning. Yet, in escaping the noise, there is a hidden warning. Sometimes avoiding the world becomes easier than confronting it. When every outing feels overwhelming, when every plan feels draining, when every interaction feels like emotional labor, staying home can shift from preference to protection, then from protection to dependency. The world becomes too much, not because it truly is, but because the nervous system has forgotten how to adapt. Still, the truth remains. The world is too loud for many people. And loving home is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is recognizing that the mind was not built for constant noise, and peace is not a privilege but a psychological necessity. But the challenge lies in learning to quiet the world without silencing the self, to find refuge without disappearing, to rest without retreating forever. Number 5. The hidden risks, when staying home becomes emotional armor. There is a moment, subtle, quiet, almost invisible, when loving home begins to shift into needing home, when comfort becomes protection, when safety becomes escape, and when the walls that once felt warm begin to feel necessary, not chosen. This is the psychological turning point that few notice, not even the people living it. Staying at home can be healing, soothing, grounding, but for some, it slowly becomes a shield, a way to avoid the pain, the judgment, the unpredictability, or the emotional exhaustion of the outside world. It becomes easier to stay inside than to face old wounds, disappointing relationships, social anxiety, heartbreak, failure, or memories that still sting. The home becomes a fortress, and the person inside becomes the soldier guarding themselves from a world that once hurt them too deeply. This is where emotional comfort becomes emotional armor. At first, it feels like peace. Then it becomes protection. Eventually, it becomes isolation disguised as preference. People who fall into this pattern often don't realize it until much later. They tell themselves, "I just like being home." But deep down, home has become the only place where they feel in control, the only place where nothing can go wrong, where no one can reject them, where no unexpected pain can slip through the cracks. The outside world becomes associated not with opportunity, but with threat. Psychologically, this is a dangerous shift. When the mind over-relies on safety, it forgets how to tolerate discomfort. When the heart hides long enough, it forgets how to open. When the world feels too big for too long, stepping outside again starts to feel impossible. And yet, the saddest part is this. People who love staying home often have the biggest hearts, the deepest minds, the richest emotional worlds, but they're also the ones most easily wounded. They retreat because the world has not been gentle with them. They isolate because someone, somewhere, taught them that vulnerability leads to disappointment. They hide because they once gave too much and received too little in return. The warning lies here. Staying home should be a choice, not a coping mechanism. A sanctuary, not a hiding place. A pause, not a permanent retreat. There is nothing wrong with loving your space, but when the world outside begins to shrink, when the idea of going out feels frightening instead of simply unappealing, when your comfort starts feeling like a cage, that's the moment to look inward and ask, am I at home because I love peace, or because I fear pain? And the beautiful truth is people can come back from this, with awareness, with gentleness, with support. They can rediscover the world at their own pace. The home that once became armor can become sanctuary again, not a place to hide from life, but a place to return to after living it. Conclusion. People who love staying at home are often misunderstood because the world measures value by visibility, by how loud you are, how busy you seem, how many places you go, how many faces you know. But homebodies, quiet souls, deep thinkers, and sensitive minds operate on a different frequency. They don't chase noise. They seek meaning. They don't need the world's applause. They need peace. They don't run from life. They walk through it gently, intentionally, and with a depth that others rarely see. Home is more than a location for them, it's a mirror. It reflects their emotions, their wounds, their growth, their history, and the parts of themselves they cannot show anywhere else. It holds their creativity, their comfort, their clarity. It catches their tears and holds their silence without judgment. It is the one place where they are fully themselves without needing to explain anything to anyone. But like all things that bring comfort, staying home carries both healing and danger. It can be the place where a person rebuilds their strength, or the place where they slowly lose their connection to the world. It can be a sanctuary or a cage, depending on what the heart is holding on to. The line between peace and avoidance is thin, and sometimes invisible. That's why understanding the psychology behind home-loving individuals is so important, because their stillness isn't laziness. Their quiet isn't emptiness, and their solitude isn't a flaw. If you see yourself in these words, let this be both validation and warning. Validation that you are not strange or broken for needing quiet your nervous system. Your emotions and your inner world simply work differently. And warning that comfort should never replace life. Even the softest heart needs fresh air. Even the gentlest soul deserves connection. Even the quietest person has a story that should be lived, not just imagined. Love your home. Honor your peace. But don't let your sanctuary become your entire world. Because the world, messy, loud, overwhelming as it is, still needs people like you. Quiet souls who feel deeply, think deeply, live deeply, and return home not because they fear the world, but because they carry its weight differently and need a place to lay it down.